أهلا وسهلا بكم مشاهدينا إلى هذه المقابلة الخاصة مع منسق الاتصالات في مجلس الأمن القومي جون كيربي، والتي نخصصها للحديث عن السودان. John, thanks for doing this and thanks for this opportunity.
You bet. Happy to be with you.
John, I want to start with what's happening today. You're conducting efforts to extend the truce. Are you hopeful that you will see an extension tonight?
Well, we're working very, very hard to get this ceasefire extended. It has largely held over the last couple of days. There have been sporadic fighting. It's not that the violence has gone away, clearly not. We know that. But in many ways it has held, and we want to see it extended into the future. So our State Department diplomats are working very hard at that.
Are you involved at the White House or not?
We are certainly monitoring it here from the National Security Council, but the effort, the actual physical effort to talk to both factions and to get them to try to extend the ceasefire is really being done out of the State Department.
Who are you working with from the Middle East, from your allies in the Middle East?
We are talking to a full range of our allies and partners throughout the world, Europe and the Middle East, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE. Certainly we're working through and will continue to discuss multilaterally through the Arab League, but there's an awful lot of discussions going on. Because like them, we too have citizens that are in Khartoum and Sudan. Like them, we still have concerns about where the future is going in Sudan. We want to see, all of us want to see, the will of the Sudanese people met.
Are you conducting now, currently, any kind of negotiations between Al-Burhan and Hemedti to meet in Juba?
All I can tell you is that we are continuing to talk to the leaders of both sides to get this ceasefire extended. Our focus right now is on the violence, getting the violence down so that humanitarian assistance can come in, getting the violence down so that there's time and space for dialogue, for a return to civilian authority, but the focus right now is on this ceasefire.
I want to go back to what you said about your allies in the region. You're working with many allies, but a top Kenyan diplomat was at the State Department standing beside Secretary Blinken when he said we're seeing more bullets than food entering Sudan, and he expressed concern over some Middle Eastern allies. He didn't name anybody. Do you share the same view?
We are all concerned about the violence, and we obviously want to see food, water, medicine, all get into the people of Khartoum and, well, throughout the country, but especially in Khartoum, where we know that things are very dire. And we are talking to, as I said, a range of allies and partners in the region and outside the region to see what we can do to get some peace and security there so that that kind of material can get in.
Okay, let me state it in a different way. Are you on the same page with your allies?
We all believe that what's needed here is a ceasefire that can be extended so that the Sudanese people can be safer, so that our national citizens can be safer, so that humanitarian assistance can get in. I won't speak for any other nation. I can tell you that we are talking to all of them about trying to achieve these same goals.
I want to move to Wagner Group. You expressed concern over their involvement and engagement there. Yesterday we had a call between Assistant Secretary Leaf and General Haftar. First, can you tell us to what extent Wagner Group is involved in what's happening currently in Sudan?
We know that the Wagner Group continues to try to destabilize the region. They continue to try to destabilize Sudan, that they are not neutral actors here. And we're watching this as closely as we can. We're certainly concerned about any assistance that the Wagner Group might provide one side in this conflict, because again, what we need is for the weapons to be put down. We need the violence to stop. We need the humanitarian assistance to get in.
What did you ask Haftar for?
I'm not going to get into individual diplomatic discussions that we might or might not be having.
John, some people argue that we are here because of the lack of serious engagement by Washington in Sudan, especially after October 2021. Do you agree?
No, we would not agree with that. We continue to to want to see what's best for the Sudanese people. We want to continue to see a move towards a transition to a civilian authority, and we obviously want, and we're having direct conversations with the leaders of both General Hamadi and General Burhan to stop the fighting and to call for a ceasefire. Now, we've temporarily suspended our embassy operations, but that's temporary. We want to get those diplomats back in. We want to have an embassy footprint in Khartoum because we believe it's that important to the people of Sudan that the United States is represented there.
Did you consider sanctions before?
We will look at a whole range of opportunities and options available to us as needed. Right now, and I think people are forgetting, right now, there are people dying, there are people at risk, and we've got to focus on getting a ceasefire extended. We've got to focus on getting a reduction in the violence so that humanitarian assistance can get in. We obviously want to have discussions longer term about peace and security in Sudan, and we obviously want to see a transition to civilian authority. But the problem in front of us, what's staring us right in the face, is this violence, and that's what we have to focus on.
Nothing could have been done before by Washington that could
have
have avoided.
There may be a day when we can sit back retrospectively and look at decisions. But right now, we're focused on getting this violence reduced, and we obviously take issue with anybody who would say that the United States didn't care, didn't focus on it, didn't have a diplomatic presence, wasn't making efforts to try to see peace and security sustained in Sudan. That's just not true.
Concern you to that the Russians are still inside Khartoum, and you are out?
You mean out by because we
evacuated
suspended
them. Yeah.
Look, that's a decision for the Russians to have to make, and we made the best decisions that we had to make for the safety and security of our people. Our diplomats, their lives, their safety mattered a lot to President Biden. And since the violence was getting worse, we did the prudent thing to get them out. But it's only a temporary suspension. If the question is alluding that, are we concerned that the Russians are going to somehow fill a vacuum in Khartoum, the answer is no, because we're only temporarily suspending our embassy operations. We're going to bring those diplomats back in. We're the ones that brokered this ceasefire that seems to be largely holding. That was brokered by the United States. So look, let the Russians speak for themselves. They can speak for their diplomatic presence. They can speak for what they're doing. We can speak for what we're doing. And what we're doing is actually having an effect on the ground. We need to see it continue.
Can you give us accurate figures about the U.S. citizens stranded in Sudan?
We are working very hard to assist in the departure of those Americans who are there, willing and want to leave. Not all of them do. We have already seen several dozens of them move out safely through ground routes. We're also making available to them, helping with our allies and partners, make available to them seats on Allied aircraft that are leaving from an airbase north of Khartoum. We're going to continue those efforts.
Are you considering to send a consulate team to the Port of Sudan?
We are working on potentially providing some consular support at Port Sudan, and as you know, we also have a Navy ship off Port Sudan, and we may add other Navy ships off Port Sudan
John,
to assist our Americans in further on travel, not to get involved in the conflict.
On the humanitarian assistance, you mentioned that many times in your answers. We know that the humanitarian situation is dire in Sudan. What are you planning to do?
We already have a disaster assistance response team on the ground in the region from USAID, who is helping to coordinate with our implementing partners additional humanitarian assistance opportunities. And so we'll see where that goes. It's important. That's why the ceasefire is so important, to get that thing in place.
John, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
It's always an honor to have you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
شكرا مشاهدينا على حسن المتابعة.